All right.
All right, let me, yep, let's hit the button. All right, yeah, YouTube says that we're live now. So welcome, Sonny, to another episode of Codecademy Live. And we like to have these conversations here where we are, asking you some questions, learning about some of the products and some of the offerings that Codecademy does, some of the innovations that we do every week. So here you are. You want to introduce yourself? Tell me a little bit of what you do at Codecademy, your background.
Cool. Yeah. So, hey, everybody. My name is Sonny. I'm a senior curriculum developer at Codecademy, and I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. I currently manage the curriculum free team. And you might know me because I wrote a lot of the Learn C++, Learn Swift, Learn SQL courses, and also helped shape our data science path and computer science path. I'm mostly here now at Codecademy. I've been here about a little over 4 years. I'm mostly here now to empower people on my team, on the curriculum free team, and also be a hype man for things like Codecademy Docs, which is what I'm here today to promote our newest product feature. Fun facts about me. I was born in Shanghai, China, moved a bunch when I was a kid, from Germany, France, Eugene, Oregon, Kent, Ohio, and now New York City. How I got into coding, I studied CS in college, and then did an internship at this tech startup called JackThreads, and that was like a very eye-opening experience, and have been doing tech-related stuff ever since. During my free time, I like to play Dota. I like to read product startup books, and I like to tinker and build things outside of work.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So it sounds like you're pretty involved, not only with teaching code, but also writing code, like doing things with code in general. Is that kind of like how Code Docs sort of came to be? Like you were just looking at resources, looking around and said, I wish there was a better way.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of Codecademy Docs has been floating around the company actually for a few years. And it's really similar to what you're saying, just like, me building stuff and not just me, a few other people on the team too, just, we're kind of tired of seeing very inconsistent coding documentation on the web. Some languages like Swift or React are very extremely solid, their official documentation, whereas other ones like, Java's or SQL's or C++ felt, a little bit outdated and not interactive enough or not beginner friendly enough. So we kind of started building this during an internal company hackathon, and the project then was actually called Codepedia, inspired by Wikipedia. And that kind of grew into we built the prototype, the team loved it, and then we launched MVP, I guess V1, and then more recently V2 last month. And V2 was more focused on contribution leaderboard, highlighting the authors for each entry and so on.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I guess for the viewers who don't really know what Codecademy Docs is, so Codecademy Docs is basically an open contribution coding documentation for all popular programming languages and frameworks. We like to say that our dream was like it's built by the community and it's maintained by Codecademy. Right now we have about 718 entries live across 18 different topics, so JavaScript and Python, and 89 of those entries are actually created by devs and learners around the world, which is pretty exciting. So I'm going to share some links in the chat for people to check out. But these 3 entries, oh wait, what? There's 265 character limit. So wait a second, let me do this one by one.
You hit the limit in the chat, yeah? Sounds like it.
So the very first one is the functional programming entry created by Amelie from Amsterdam. This one, so the 3 I'm going to share are all created this week. Okay. Here's another one. It's a Java hash map one, and it's created by Anusha from India, and also factory pattern, a general entry created by Bernard from England. I think that those 3 showcases just like the potential of Codecademy Docs.
Awesome. I'm actually curious. You were talking about Code Docs and how it came to be, like the V1 and the MVP and stuff.
Yeah.
what was some of the, can you speak a little bit about the guiding principles of this? Like, I know that you said that the, documentation online for certain languages is pretty inconsistent. It kind of was a little frustrating. So how do you tackle a problem like this? Like, how do you go about, okay, the idea is we want better documentation. And then actually for what we have today, this really cool website is really well, the design, people can contribute all around the world. How does that process go from like nothing to what we have today?
Yeah. So how to start from 0 to 1. First, I think even during the hackathon, we were trying to pinpoint an area in the coding journey where every developer, like we're essentially, before we even had the idea, we're brainstorming different things to tackle. We want to build something that's part of the conversation for every single developer around the world. You know how Stack Overflow is for answering questions. There's VS Code is for the code editor, and we thought coding documentation is very much an often an overlooked market. And we, W3 Schools, Mozilla Web Docs, they've been around for 15 years. They have deep roots in the SEO, but something that people don't really know about is that W3 School is actually the 136 most visited sites in the world, right? So we knew there was a market there. So
is this a process where you're kind of like you think like a user, like, where if I were to use this myself, this is the things I would like to see?
Oh, absolutely. This is definitely something that we're building for ourselves. And for us, and after we pinpointed, okay, let's give coding documentation a shot. We just literally brainstorm all the different ways that we think coding documentation could be improved. And in our dream world, we're talking about very high quality content, very beginner friendly content, with breadth and scope. Most of the coding documentation that we see only focus on 1, 2, or 3, or sometimes less than 5 languages and frameworks. And we're trying to build something that's a little bit more scalable. One thing we also really like on the team is interactivity. So when you find what a method or a function does, what the parameters are, you also want to see different example code blocks. And also we're trying to include at the very end of every single entry something called a code bite. And it's basically you can click, press play, and then you'll actually see the output of the example code.
That's pretty cool. A lot of people are very visual, right? Like you explain the code, but they will look at it like, well, I just want to see it like in action. I want to see the code actually. So that's a really cool feature. I mean, exactly. That sounds like one of those features that kind of like really make the whole experience takes it to a new level.
Yeah. And then I'll say one last thing. It's searchability. Even within the product itself. This is inspired by the iPod and also Airbnb, this sort of a 3-click rule. So hopefully down the road, we'll get to a point for Codecademy Docs where, within 3 clicks, you can find exactly the answer to your question. That's like the dream world.
Nice. Nice. So since this is a resource, I know that we have at Codecademy other things like cheat sheets, for example, right? When people are going through our coursework, what would you say is kind of like the prime time for a new learner to start exploring these kind of things? Because sometimes documentation can be very daunting. And if you don't know a lot of coding, your background is a little shaky, you go to documentation pages and they're really thick, a lot of text, a lot of, verbiage that you don't understand. So is Codecademy Docs, like the way that it's getting built and the way that it's adding new pages every day, would you say there's something that people should jump on like at the beginning of the coding journey? Should you first get a bit of background? Like what's kind of like the optimal path for someone that comes to Codecademy to start exploring this?
Yeah, I would say Codecademy Docs, the target audience is the day 7 learner or the week 2 learner to advanced learners. So the minute that you start trying to build something on your own and you're like, oh, I forgot what for loop does in Python, in C++, what a list is in Python, that's when you can look things up. And instead of jumping out of the ecosystem and go find other coding documentation, we thought, why not just build it ourselves?
Yeah. No, I know that a lot of learners sometimes they will have this kind of like feeling of like I'm not good enough, or like I don't know enough to ask these right of questions and stuff, right? So sometimes it's almost like it's stopping them from going to the place like, hey, there's this amazing documentation place, but they just hear the word documentation and think there's no way, that's probably not for me, right? Like, but it sounds like the way information is being, presented and the way everything's organized is very beginner friendly. And it's almost like a tool that you want to learn to use alongside your own coding journey. Like the better you get at documentation, the better you get, right? Like you're getting good as a developer, you get has a documentation.
Yeah, totally. And this is probably the reasons why even in colleges, boot camps, and also even on Codecademy, we teach people how to use Google to search for answers to your coding questions all the time, right? Yeah. So there's a pros and cons to this, I'll say. I would say this is probably why SEO is such a big player for things like Codecademy Docs, just because all the other players out there have a strong roots in the SEO business over the last 15 years, right? And that's a hard thing to beat right now for Codecademy Docs.
Okay, so let's say that we've been talking a lot about like the front facing or like the first touch experience that you get with Codecademy Docs. Let's say that we have a user, like you said, week 2, week 3, they need some help in Codecademy Docs. They find help and they go, oh, you know what? This is really cool. I would like to contribute myself as well. How was the thought process behind the way that Codecademy was building Code Docs and Codecademy Docs to enable the community and everybody else to also contribute to these pages?
Yeah, we try to do a couple of things. And one thing, we try to make the process of adding an entry and editing an entry as easy and seamless as possible. So one thing we actually added in the V2 product feature is adding an edit button on top of every single Codecademy Docs entries. So on the top right of every single entry that you see, every page you see, you should see an edit this page on GitHub. So if you just click that, it'll take you directly there. So this helps people who are new to GitHub, people who are a little bit overwhelmed by open source, version control systems, to get over that little hump. And one thing we actually did when we first brainstorming, what do we do build Codecademy Docs internally, like in-house, or do we do it over GitHub? I was pretty bullish on using GitHub because, I think Codecademy Docs is actually a very good, like almost the perfect first open source project that you can take on. It helps you, get used to, how to make a PR and things like that, how to merge your PR, get some reps in.
Wow. Yeah, that's a really good point. I know that a lot of learners, you build things for yourself, that we're always saying, hey, you need to build things with people, and version control, Git and GitHub, they get really, really scary really fast if you never used them before. So I'm assuming that the idea is people, if they like what they see and they want to contribute, like, is there a world in which people contribute to Code Docs more than they use Codecademy Docs? Like they basically say, well, I'm just looking to contribute in open source. Like, I don't really like look at the pages. I just like building the pages, because I'm assuming that it's kind of like the same Wikipedia, right? Like some people, they just write articles. They're not really consumers. They're just contributors, right?
Yeah. That'd be awesome. But right now we have a team of internal maintainers. Like I think Christy and Brandon probably in the chat right now. They help me with maintaining Codecademy Docs. But I'll say for most these sort of open contribution sites, what happens, like this sort of 90-10, or I forgot the numbers, like 90-10 2 rule or whatever, where only the 2% really contribute, and most of them are just the users. But we are trying to build out a community of contributors who are just, I think the dream world for this is that down the road in 10 years, in 5 years, there are tens of thousands of developers worldwide who can, make this better and better every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I was asking because I would imagine that one concern most people have is, okay, I want to use Codecademy Docs, but what's the quality of it? If anyone can contribute to this, is what I'm consuming true? Not true? Is it best practice, right? There's a lot of concern about form, and if you're teaching me this way of a for loop, is that the only way? Is that the best way? I want to be a good coder, right? So maybe you can explain a little bit what's the process like behind the scenes to ensure that Codecademy Docs, has a good level of quality and consistency, and it doesn't, I'm assuming that not every contribution, not everyone can just dump whatever they want in Codecademy Docs that goes live, right?
Totally. Quality is something that we try to have a really solid grasp on for every single entry that comes in. So right now, we have a style guide in the GitHub repo where everybody can check out and sort of understand how we look at things, how we view things, how we review things. And our maintainers, such as Christine and Brandon, and Steven and Kyra and a bunch of others, what we do is we usually try to do 2 rounds of reviews for every single entry. This is the first time we ever tackle something like UGC, user-generated content. So this is all like, sort of new area for us. But I think 2 rounds of reviews have been doing it pretty well for us. But we look at everything from formatting, from technical accuracy, from plagiarism, to typos, grammar, pedagogy, and things like that.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. So, okay, we've talked about how it came to be, how it's running, how you go through the review process. What would you say, kind of like to wrap it all into one big concept, if you are a user at Codecademy and you hear about this, like in this video or somewhere else, you might be thinking, well, why should I contribute to this? Like, what is it in it for me, right? Like, why should anyone care about contributing to open source projects or to contribute to documentation in general, right? Do you have like a thought about, like, if somebody asks you, well, why should I care? Like, why should I take my time in contributing to this?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I think it's just fun. I think that's why open source community is such a big community, is because when you're collectively building something together, it's just a fun. It's, at least for me, to see something grow from nothing to even now. It's only been a few months and I already have over 700 entries. It's something like almost, very, very rewarding. And also you're building something that a lot of people see. For example, I think today I just pulled the stats. After the initial hump, I guess the launch hump, we're looking at about 4K to 6K weekly active users for Codecademy Docs consistently over the past 8 weeks. So every single entry that you build, there are going to be a lot of eyeballs on. Our current most highest traffic topics are JavaScript, C++, HTML, and Java. So if you're writing those entries, we're talking about a lot of people checking out your work. The total cumulative distinct users as of this morning is 95,000. And I know a lot of people say that it's kind of cumulative users, total users, kind of a vanity metric, and not necessarily what we should pay attention to when we try to inform our product strategy. But we are about to break 100,000 distinct users this week or next week. So this is a huge hard-earned win for the team, leading indicator that something is resonating here with people. So I'll say that when you're part of something, that's growing and sort of, something that started from scratch a few months ago, I think it's just very, very, very fun, very, very rewarding. And also number 2, I think the biggest reason why I think some people should help out with this on the learner side is that there hasn't really been a single source of truth for coding documentation, right? Like, some coding documentation sites focus on languages, some focus on data science, machine learning, Python packages. Some focus on, the official documentation only focus on one thing or 2 things. So here we have an opportunity to build something that has breadth and depth. And because it's open contribution, it's actually easier for us to maintain and to keep it updated, right? Because frameworks, things get new people ship new versions all the time. But to have this sort of single source of truth, I think it's something that people should aspire to and help out, especially. And also a third reason, actually, I just thought of this on the spot, but I think teaching, when you're writing something, when you're teaching something, it's probably the best way to learn something. That's what people always say.
Yep.
So when you're learning a new topic or new concept, and you go to Codecademy Docs and realize, oh, this is missing, I think the best way to do is try to write it in a very concise, clarity, but not losing the brevity, and try to teach it to people, right? I think that will help you sort of really cement your learnings.
Totally agree. Yeah. So to summarize, basically, is because it feels good to be part of a team. Bragging rights. You go to people and go like, look at this. I wrote this article. So bragging feels good to be in a team. Bragging rights. Number 3, it helps you learn as well. Like by trying to teach us to somebody, you find your own gaps in your knowledge. Like, oh, I don't know how to explain this. Like maybe intuitively you understand how it works, but how do you explain it, right? Like it makes you better too. Yeah, it's kind of like the trinity, of learning to code, I guess. It's like you're part of, you're collaborating, you get to showcase your work, and you also get to increase the depth of your own knowledge at the same time. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. Well, do you have any parting thoughts? We've been talking here for like 20 some minutes. Do you have maybe you can give us a sneak peek of some features coming up to Codecademy Docs in the future, or you can tell us a little bit of what the future holds for this project?
Yeah, I don't think I can share too much about what we're going to build in Q1. But next Friday, we have another session on this. But I'll be joined by 2 people on my team, Christine and Brandon, who have been helping me with Codecademy Docs for the last few months. And we're going to review a couple of 1 or 2 or 3, who knows, pull requests live, and teach you how and sort of show you how we look at new entries on Codecademy Docs. But I think that'll be super fun. So I highly recommend people to join. And also, there's so many ways to contribute to Codecademy Docs. And that's something if you're watching this right now, not only, should you check out Codecademy Docs, find problems with it, edit entries, add entries, but you can also help promote on your social media. You can also give us product feedback. Those highly, something we'd really look forward to. But yeah, and I'm also here to answer any other questions in the chat too.
Awesome. Let's check out the Q&A. So this is the part of the live stream where we take some questions from the audience. Anyone watching right now live, if you have questions for Sonny about, anything, Codecademy Docs related, documentation, how it's built, how you contribute, any other questions that you may have, now it's time to drop those questions in the chat. I know that we had a couple already. One of them I feel like you already answered, which is, what's the incentive to freely write good documentations in Codecademy? I like the nuance of what's the incentive to write good documentations in Codecademy. So we were talking about what's the incentive to just contribute, but like what's the incentive for someone to contribute good content, right? Like not just brevity, like, oh, this took me like 20 minutes, submit the PR, good to go. Like, what are your thoughts on like people actually contributing quality work?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody should have a pretty high bar for this, especially in the very beginning. Whatever bar that you set will be the bar that people feature. The first 100. I always tell people like the first 100 docs entries will set the bar for the next 10,000. So that's something to think about, especially if you're an early adopter, you're early user of Codecademy Docs. Try to make sure the stuff. Early contributor, try to make sure the stuff is solid, read through the documentation. And also just remember that, when you're writing something like Codecademy Docs, hundreds of thousands of people will use it, in the next year or 2, right? Or possibly even millions. So it does have a sort of a splash effect if you're writing good compared to, definitely don't, add in inaccurate information. That's like number one thing to check for. But the good part, I'm going to say though, for Codecademy Docs is that it's always evolving. Similar to Wikipedia, anybody can add an edit entry. Same thing with Codecademy Docs, right? It's even if you do, make an error and the maintainers did not catch it, another user can, we see this across in the last few weeks, people picking up bugs and reporting, not only reporting them, but also fixing them themselves.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's something that a lot of people complain about or will think like the first thought when an open source project is, oh, there's no quality control. And that's not true. Like you can see open source projects all across the internet where all kinds of people from all over the world are contributing. And it does work because someone's mistake gets picked up by somebody else, right? Or someone's error or whatever. Like it's just kind of like the blob, the mass, right? It's keeping it together, right? So, and it's also an incentive for inviting new friends to Codecademy Docs, because the more eyes on the docs, the better they get, right? The more contributors, the more people that contribute to it and use it, the better it gets. So it's a win for everyone. Let's see. Another question. Somebody was wondering if Codecademy Docs will ever be paywalled in any way.
Yeah, I think for Codecademy, yeah, I think it's going to be free forever. That's how we set the ground rule for this, and I think I really try to really try to document that this should be a free resource from the very get-go. It's just how the market is for coding documentation. Every platform, actually, I can't even think of one coding documentation that's not free. Think of coding documentation as the sort of the reference guide, the reference menu for building your IKEA furnitures or Legos, right? The stuff, it's got to be free.
Yep.
And another way how we think about it from the business perspective is when we're trying to beat big players right now, like W3 Schools and Mozilla Web Docs, they're almost like the Craigslist of coding documentation, right? And hundreds of companies have tried to take down Craigslist over the last decade. Nobody was able to do so. And fundamentally, for that sort of marketplace, it's buyers go where sellers are, sellers go where things are being sold. And same thing, and when we try to frame that with Codecademy Docs too, is that people are looking for free content. This is how people are finding coding documentation, is through Google. People are going to places where it's easily accessible, it's beginner friendly, and where they can find answers. If you have a paywall, it just doesn't make sense from the business perspective if you're looking at other competitors.
And it doesn't make sense for contributors either, right? Like you were saying, one of the benefits of contributing to Code Docs is that lots of people are going to see your content. You can flex it, like you can contribute article after article and then go put it in your resume or put it in your personal website or something. So like, this is what I did right on your GitHub. If it's a paywall, now people can't see it. Like you're giving them links to protected pages, right? So it also decentivizes people, the average person from coming and contributing, right? It hurts that feeding as well of content. So makes a lot of sense what you're saying. Let's see, we are at 1:30. Huh? You were saying?
Oh, I was just going to say our philosophy here too is also just give more to gain more. So we're building an awesome free resource for everybody to use, and hoping that if you do unblocks you, great. But if you do want to dive a little bit deeper, you can go check out a Codecademy course.
Awesome. All right. So since we're out of time, I'm going to go through one more question, and then we're calling it a day for today. Let's see. There's a question here that said, "Will Codecademy Docs add more topics in the near future?" I think that's an easy question.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So check out. So this is actually something that y'all can do if you're watching right now. Go check out GitHub issues in the GitHub repo. So I'm going to send out the GitHub repo right now in the chat. But there are a ton of topics that we still don't have right now, such as R, such as Django, Flask. Any machine learning packages and libraries we actually don't have. So there are almost endless things that that we're looking for, really. So take a look at Codecademy Docs, at the existing entries, existing topics, see what's missing. Even within the topics themselves, there's still tons of concepts, functions, methods, libraries that are still needs to be filled in. So take a look at those first. But GitHub issues is a perfect place to request for a new concept or topic. But also, if you're one of those doers, go in and just make the edits yourself and make those added entry yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like Codecademy Docs is not limited to languages themselves. Like some people might think of this as, oh, that's for JavaScript or for Python. But like you said, libraries and other tools that are like coding related, like that, it's a home for everything. It's a
Totally.
one-stop for everything, right? Like if you're thinking of, if you really like an obscure library that you use in JavaScript a lot, like there's room for that too, right?
Totally.
All right. That's awesome. Well, I think, yeah, thank you for stopping by, Sonny, today. And like you said, we have a demo next week. You're going to be here with a couple of contributors. I've been building Codecademy Docs for a few months now. And you're going to be doing a demo on how, like, you're going to be reviewing some PRs live. And you're going to be explaining how to contribute to Codecademy Docs.
Yeah, just to show everybody the whole process. Let us know too. Feel free to shoot me a Twitter message if there's specific things that you want to see at the next week's session, and hopefully we can add that into the programming.
All right, great. Well, thank you for stopping by, and I guess we'll see you all next Friday at the same time, I believe, 1 p.m. So see you in a week.
All right, have a good weekend, everybody.
And that's the live stream.
All right.
It's gone.